Hello everyone and welcome back to Criminology Clips. So today we're going to be focusing on Unit 2, AC2.2, the learning theories of criminality. We know we've got to learn 3, but for today we're going to be focusing on operant learning theory. Now, B.F. Skinner is your main man of operant learning theory, but his work was based on the work of Thorndike's law of effect. And according to this principle, behaviour that has pleasant consequences is likely to be repeated, and behaviour that has unpleasant consequences is less likely to be repeated. So Skinner studied operant conditioning by conducting experiments using animals that he placed inside a Skinner box. And this Skinner box is sometimes known as an operant conditioning chamber as well. And it's used to record an animal's behaviour in a compressed time frame. Now, Skinner identified 3 types of responses that can follow a behaviour: positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and punishment. And we're going to look at each of these 3. So let's start with positive reinforcement then. So in positive reinforcement, a response or behaviour is strengthened or reinforced by rewards, and that leads to the desired behaviour being repeated. So the reward is like a reinforcing stimulus. Now, Skinner showed how positive reinforcement worked by placing a hungry rat in his Skinner box. And the box contained a lever on the side, and as the rat moved around the box, it would accidentally knock this lever. And as soon as that lever was knocked, a food pellet would drop into the container next to the lever. Now, the rats quickly learned to go straight to that lever after a few times of being inside the box. The consequence of receiving food, if they pressed the lever, ensured that they would repeat that behaviour again and again. So positive reinforcement strengthens the behaviour by providing a consequence that an individual finds rewarding. So let's apply this to a human example. If, for example, you tidied your room and you were given £5, you would be more likely to repeat that behaviour of tidying your room in the future. So the behaviour of tidying your room has been reinforced, and therefore it's more likely to happen again. So that will reinforce behaviour and increase the likelihood of that behaviour being repeated. Let's have a look at negative reinforcement then. So negative reinforcement is increasing a certain action or behaviour in order to remove an unpleasant stimulus. So it's negative reinforcement strengthens behaviour because it stops or removes something unpleasant. Let's have a look at how Skinner showed this negative reinforcement. What he did was he placed a rat in his Skinner box, and he subjected it to an unpleasant electric current which caused it some discomfort. Now, the electric current stopped if the rat pressed the lever. And the rats quickly learned to go straight to the lever after a few times being put in this box with the electric current running through it. The consequence of escaping the electric current ensured that they would repeat the action of pressing the lever again and again. So the lever put an end to the shock, so this strengthened and reinforced the behaviour of pressing the lever. If we look at a human example, we've got the example of a parent nagging. Now, if you've not tidied your room, you might get nagged by a parent, and that's unpleasant. So in order to put an end to the nagging, you need to tidy your room. And if you tidy your room, the nagging stops. Just like when the rat was being electrocuted, by pressing the lever, the electrocution stopped. By tidying your room, the nagging stops. So the nagging strengthens the behaviour of cleaning your room, and therefore it's more likely to occur again. So you're more likely to tidy your room in order to stop the unpleasant experience of nagging. So let's have a look at the third one, which is punishment. Now, punishment is defined as the opposite of reinforcement because it's designed to weaken or stop a response rather than increase it. So like reinforcement, punishment can work either by applying an unpleasant stimulus like a shock after a response, or by removing a potentially rewarding stimulus, for example, taking someone's pocket money away to punish a certain undesirable behaviour. And in the case of the Skinner box, rats received a shock every time they touched the lever. And the punishment of receiving the shock reduced the action of pressing the lever, so it reduced the behaviour of pressing the lever. And you might be thinking, how is any of this related to crime? Well, according to Jeffrey, he argued that criminal behaviour is learned through reinforcement of particular behaviours. If a crime has more rewarding or reinforcing consequences than punishing ones for an individual, they'll be more likely to engage in that criminal behaviour. So, for example, it might have financial reward, so you might gain financially from committing that crime, but it might also be an emotional reward. It doesn't always have to involve money. So, for example, it strengthens a friendship or peer group. It gives you status amongst your deviant friends and peers. And if that's the case, if there is a reward or reinforcement for that particular criminal behaviour, well, therefore you'll be more likely to engage in it again and you'll increase the criminal behaviour. It will continue. And on the opposite end of that, if a certain criminal behaviour is punished, perhaps through a prison sentence, a fine or something like that, well then that's going to decrease the likelihood of that behaviour being repeated. Just like with the rats in the box pressing the lever and getting shocked, it reduced the times they pressed the lever because they were discouraged from it. The behaviour wasn't reinforced in a positive way, it was punished. So let's see what we can reflect on. Can you summarise the findings of Skinner's research? What's the difference between negative reinforcement and punishment? It's really important we know the difference between these two things. And finally, using examples, explain how operant learning theory can be applied to criminality. See you next time.